What's up, everybody? This is the Sports League Podcast. I am your host, Alex Leak. We got Stoyo back on the show. Stoyo, it's been a while, but it's good to have you back on, bro.
It's nice to be here. Looking forward to talk about some football, and yeah, it's been a moment.
Absolutely. And we got Gavin on the show as well. Gavin, good to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, man. Here representing the West Coast and the soon-to-be NFC North champ Detroit Lions.
Hell yeah.
Preview of later on.
This is the 2023 NFC North season preview. We're going to take a look at each team, Vikings, Packers, Lions, Bears, and talk about the off seasons, how they finished last year, and what we're expecting going into this season. The season right around the corner. And this is a bit of a throwback. This used to be the crew back in 2017. So it's good to, get us three back together for an episode. Appreciate you guys. So let's get into this. Let's start off with the Green Bay Packers. Last season, they finished 8-9 and lost in Week 18 to the Detroit Lions, their worst record since 2018. And Aaron Rodgers' last pass as a Packer was intercepted by Lions safety Kirby Joseph. Gavin, that had to be a nice end of the season for you to beat Aaron Rodgers and kind of send him out of the division, huh?
My pants just got a little tighter just for thinking about that Week 18 game. That was pure ecstasy. I mean, always fun to ruin a division rival's chances, especially even eliminating from the playoffs and capping, the time of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay with an interception and a loss to miss the playoffs. Oh, so good.
And so since then, there's been a big landscape shift in the division as the Packers trade away the star quarterback Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets. Stoyo, as a Bears fan, me and you both rep the Bears. The owner of the Bears is finally gone. The guy that's given us headaches every season for years is finally out of the division. You have to be excited about that, and it really opens up the division this year more than any other year. It's wide open, huh?
Ding dong, Batman is gone. It's been decades now that he was just destroying my team over and over and over again. I don't even want to repeat his record against us. Everyone already knows, but yeah, it's finally over. I don't want to see him ever again on the Packers, and now the Packers are going to know what it feels like to look for a QB for a few years.
Yeah, and we'll see. It's a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure on Jordan Love to see, if he can fill in for Aaron Rodgers. It's kind of interesting that Favre leaves the Packers and goes to the Jets. Aaron Rodgers leaves and goes to the Jets. Stoyo, I hope you're right, and Aaron Rodgers doesn't find himself on the Vikings next year.
It's a possibility because I believe Kirk Cousins is in his final year of his contract. So It's actually a possibility, but I doubt it. You never know. But yeah, at least for this season, Aaron Rodgers is out of the NFC North. Therefore, there's a lot of opportunities to be had.
Absolutely, and a lot of his former teammates go with him to New York. Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, Adrian Amos. Gavin, do you think we should start calling them the New York Packers for a season?
Yeah, this is it's a lot different than when Favre went because so many other players were brought along. Some of them apparently per the request of Aaron Rodgers bringing his friends along.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's lots of veteran talent leaving the Packers organization, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with them and how Matt LaFleur handles it's going to be his hardest season now, not having a veteran, future Hall of Fame signal caller at the helm, that could be covering up some of, some flaws in his early head coaching days, but It's been there for a few years now. Maybe he's figured it out, but it's going to be very telling for LaFleur and his talent of him and his staff.
Absolutely, the staff and the roster, which I think Rodgers has been covering up for a lot of roster holes for a few years now. Um, let's look at the quarterback position to start out with. Stoyo, it's Jordan Love who's unproven. I think he started one game in his career. And now you've got, if Jordan Love isn't successful, the backups behind him aren't proven or any good really at all either. You got Danny Etling and rookie Sean Clifford. This might be the worst quarterback situation in the NFL or close to it. I mean, what do you think? There's a lot of pressure on Jordan Love, and the Packers don't really have a veteran or anybody to go to if he doesn't do well.
That's true. The only positive thing I can say about Jordan Love is that he's set for a few seasons, and for QBs, that's very important. So he had time to learn the playbook and to just know this offense. So he had time to prepare himself. Is he the next big thing? I sure hope not. I cannot have another Hall of Famer in Green Bay. I cannot deal with that. So for my own selfish reasons, I hope he's terrible, but I have no proof that he is or he isn't. As you said, he only started one game. But yeah, it could be one of the weakest QB rooms, maybe even the whole league. And to say that about Green Bay, I don't think I ever said that before.
Yeah, we'd have to go back to like the early 90s, late 80s to say that about the Packers. And Gavin, what do you think about this quarterback room? I mean, Sean Clifford, I don't know if you watched him at Penn State. He got drafted 5th round. Why did he even get drafted? Like, Sean Clifford is not a good quarterback. I mean, Jordan Love, Danny Etling, and Sean Clifford, that's horrible. Do you agree, Gavin?
Oh yeah, it's not ideal, but I think I don't know that when you're talking about drafting a quarterback, in the mid to late rounds, you're taking a flyer, and for most teams, unless you have a veteran quarterback as your backup, like your season's over if your starter goes out. So really, getting these younger guys in brings about a cheap backup. And if Love gets beat out or isn't performing well, I think they know their season's done. So there's not a big need to try and have someone else in there to try and salvage the season. And honestly, I think having Rodgers gone, that's one of the base advantages for Love this season, is that's gone now. He is the guy. There's no more conversation about, well, is it going to be Love? Is it going to be Rodgers? Like, when is this going to change? That's all gone now. It's Love's team. He has a full off season where he knows that he's going to be on the field, hopefully 17 games. And so I think they're going to ride or die with Love this season. He signed I don't even know what to call it. He restructured his contract. I don't remember the exact terms, but very not betting on himself like a lot of quarterbacks this season. So I don't think they're tied to him for very long. So I think they're to see what they can do this season. And this, I think, is Love's one chance to keep a starting job this season.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see what he can do with it. And I think the best way to put him in a good position to be successful is to use that two-headed running back monster, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. I would be run heavy with like play action off of it, roll out, get Jordan Love out in the open where he can threaten with his legs, clearly defined throwing lanes, stuff like that. Do you agree with that, Stoyo? I would be using Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon a lot this year if I'm Green Bay.
You have to. They're probably one of the best combos in the league, especially since now the league is moving to a more of a pass-heavy offense. It's nice to see like two workhorses still on one team, and I would rely on that. And I think that this is Jordan Love's only year to prove that he's the man. Yes, he's given this year, but I think that if he doesn't do much, they're just going to find someone else.
Do you think there's any chance if he struggles that some of the blame goes on Matt LaFleur and maybe they could move on from the head coach?
Perhaps, maybe not the head coach. I think drafting him a few years ago in the first round is pretty much a mistake if he doesn't turn out. But who knows? They might trade for someone else. I heard Trey Lance is available currently.
Yeah, he could be. He's been performing well in training camp, and we'll see what happens. I mean, who knows with the Niners? They got, three quarterbacks hurt last year, so you never know. Um, what do you think, Gavin? I mean, you got to go run heavy. You got two proven running backs. On top of that, the Packers wide receiver room is very young. You're talking about second year Christian Watson, second year Romeo Dobbs. That's your 1-2. After that, you got rookies Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, and then Samari Toure. Really inexperienced receiving core there in Green Bay.
Yeah, and just to add insult to injury, there's an unofficial depth chart release in the last couple days where Jaden Reed, their second round pick, isn't even the number 3 receiver. Toure is slated ahead of him as of right now. So
wow.
That's, I think, rookie receivers, it's not uncommon for them to struggle. I mean, even Devontae Adams didn't thrive with Aaron Rodgers right out the gate. It took him a few years to, kind of get his skates under him, so to speak. So that's not, it's not necessarily the end of his career by any means. But yeah, it's a very young and inexperienced team. We saw some, there's a nice start for Dobbs early in 2022, but he kind of petered off, and then the opposite with Watson. We kind of saw him come on a little bit for the Packers, but I would expect to see lots of, you say the run game. I agree. You're going to have to. I think they can utilize the two-head monster in the backfield quite a bit, and both of those guys, particularly, boy, I'm spacing on his name now. Not Dylan, but the other one. Gosh,
Aaron Jones.
Yeah, he's a useful receiver as well.
Yep.
So I think you're going to see a lot of deep shots to Watson, some dump offs to the running backs. They did also draft Luke Musgrave, the tight end, to cover up Robert Tonyan leaving. So there's some new young weapons. So they're really going to have to rely on a young talent. So that's there's going to be a lot of things we find out about the Packers organization, their front office, their GM, all of that is going to be, under heavy scrutiny this season.
Absolutely. Both their starting tight ends, Stoyo, are now Chicago Bears, Robert Tonyan and Mercedes Lewis. So they drafted two rookies, Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. So a really young receiving core, and then two rookies at tight end. I mean, we've seen a lot of inexperienced receiving rooms in Chicago. This is one of the most inexperienced I've seen. Do you agree?
It's always a pleasure to see that on the Packers. I remember last year, Aaron Rodgers was getting frustrated with Dobbs, I believe, for dropping a few passes. And if they couldn't perform really that great with Aaron Rodgers, I'm sure there's going to be a huge drop-off with Jordan Love.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of questions especially about the Packers offense. Really the only solidified spot is the running back room. Even the O-line, you're banking on David Bakhtiari, who's got to be 50 years old by now.
And he's coming off injury too.
Yeah.
I don't think that's been fully cleared yet.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting how well they can protect Jordan Love. And then, how does he respond if his young receivers drop the ball, crucial third down drop, stuff like that? Does that get in his head? With a veteran quarterback like Rodgers, he can withstand it. Even him, you saw him getting frustrated. With a young quarterback that's, so much pressure on him to succeed, it could easily get in his head. So it's going to be a tough task for the Packers coaching staff this season. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. You got, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, guys like that on the defensive line. Pass rushers, Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, rookie Lucas Van Ness, Justin Hollins. Gavin, what do you see? Is this Packers defense good enough to be like a top 10 unit and help out the offense?
I don't think that it's strong enough to cover the inefficiencies that you might expect from a young offense. You have some veterans on there, Kenny Clark and Preston Smith. Rashawn Gary's kind of come into his own over the last couple years.
Mhm.
After a first kind of disappointing first year for being such an early pick in the first round. But yeah, their front line is a little very dependent on some older, not the old veterans, but not young guys. There's definitely a little bit. There's not the depth that you would hope
Yeah.
for a core, like the defensive line. But I do think that they have they have a chance to kind of cover up some of that with their secondary. Rasul Douglas and of course Jair Alexander, the latter, especially an All-Pro cornerback, can lock down some receivers and give their front a little bit more time to get to the quarterback. I think obviously they're hoping Van Ness, first rounder, will help with that as well. So lots of they've got, that's where most of their veteran talent exists. They've got a little bit on the offensive line, but their defense especially is where they're looking for the veterans to step up and carry probably, I'd say, the majority of the weight for this team.
Yeah, and Stoyo, a guy that we know well, Adrian Amos, leaves and goes to the Jets. He's one of the regrets I had in Chicago. I wish we would have kept him and not allowed him to go to Green Bay. Do you feel like Adrian Amos is a decent loss for the Packers defense?
Of course, I think Adrian Amos didn't get the respect he deserved. He was a very serviceable player.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think Green Bay's defense will be slightly better than their offense. I don't think anyone mentioned Jair Alexander, one of the best corners in the league, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm excited. I think the Packers are going to be horrible this year.
Yeah.
It's about damn time.
Yep, it is. You guys both are giving Jair some love, and I agree he's good. Is he great? Is my question. Is he a top 5 corner in the league, or is it a little more hype than production? Do you guys, are you on similar thoughts there, or do you guys really like Jair Alexander? Yeah,
I
then what
think
do you
when
think?
he's healthy, I think he's I don't know if I would say top 5, just because there's been some corners that have come in, like Sauce Gardner, for instance, that would push him out of the top 5, but
Mhm.
I think if you go back, I'd say top 10 for sure when he's healthy, which he's had some struggles with that. I think 2 years ago he missed a good chunk of the season, and you can see that when you have a player of that caliber go off your team and you start to see other corners start to get targeted more. I think seeing other offenses react to such a player being out, I think for me that tells the story. If the football minds that get paid 6 figures to they target the other guy, I think
Yeah.
that's the proof's in that pudding.
Yeah, and Rasul Douglas is a good corner number 2. The
Yeah.
two young Georgia defenders need to step up. Devontae Wyatt on the D line and Quay Walker. If they can start, have a big year, that's key. Devondre Campbell's been an excellent addition, and kind of a leader of that defense. How about this? Mason Crosby, no longer on the team, sells his Green Bay home. Stoyo, can you tell me the last time Mason Crosby wasn't on the Packers?
I don't think I can remember it.
2007 or 2006 is the last time he wasn't there. That was back when Brett Favre was still slinging it.
Wow.
I would say that was pretty before Rodgers was running the show.
Yeah, and so now they're going with rookie Anders Carlson, a 6th-round pick. So we'll see. Not having that reliable veteran kicker, that can be taken for granted. And then you come into this season, on top of some of the other issues, you start missing some field goals, missing some extra points. It's going to get really uncomfortable there in the frozen tundra.
It's a
Yeah.
difficult place to kick in for sure.
Yeah. I mean, us Bears fans know well, if you don't have a kicker, you're kind of screwed. um, I got some sad news to report, Stoyo. The Packers passed the Bears last season for most wins in NFL history. The Bears had held that since 1921. But the Packers just passed them last season to get to 790. We're at 786. Now that Rodgers is out of town, they got to rely on Jordan Love. We got to get that record back, don't we?
We do, but a 4-game lead may take us like decades to catch up.
That's the problem. Yeah. But so I mean, I got the Packers. Based on what we just went through, where do you see the Packers finishing? I got them 4th place, dead last in this division. Do you guys agree? Stoyle?
I have Packers 4th place in the division. I have them going 4-13.
Yeah. I got 5-12. What do you think, Gavin?
Oh man, I don't have them that low. I think while they do have the young quarterback, the young receivers, I do think they have some veterans running the show, especially on the defensive side of the ball, as well as coaching. So I honestly I think they're gonna. I don't know what their over under is, but I think that they can win 7 or 8 games this year. I think I think their defense is strong enough to help them not lose games. I think the teams that really struggle have a young quarterback and a really bad offense. You guys would know about that, or really bad defense, I should say. You guys know about that from last year. And so I think if we're a little bit different than that situation, we've got some more experience on there, and I do think that there is a little bit more upside with Love. We knew he was raw coming in. So as far as where exactly I have them ranked, I think they're going to be fighting with the Bears to not be last place, right around that same 7-8 wins.
And that's the thing. This division is very wide open. I think the most wide open in the NFL. Like 9 wins could get you this division, and it might be all clumped up right in there in that 6 to 9 win window,
Oh man, I don't want to be the NFC West from 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
with an under 500 record into the playoffs.
Yeah, that was the Bucks. The NFC South last year, the Bucks made the playoffs at 8-9. That could be this division. So we'll see. Let's get to these Vikings, because the Vikings have had the most curious offseason. I don't understand what the Vikings are doing at all. They win 13 games last year, win the NFC North, get to the playoffs, host a playoff game, and get beat by the New York Football Giants. But they were clutch. Like in 11 of their 13 wins were by 1 score. And they also completed the largest comeback in NFL history. After being down 33-0 at halftime, they beat the Colts 39-36. But if you look at a lot of those games, 4 or 5 of them don't happen without star running back Dalvin Cook and his explosiveness. And all these people on Twitter and all these Viking fans are trying to convince me and say that Dalvin Cook had lost a step. He wasn't as valuable to the offense. You don't pay running backs. Stoyo, help me try to figure this out. How is Dalvin Cook not the most important or at least second most important guy to that team? You know what I mean?
I wouldn't say second most when you have Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins, but third on the offense, sure. I do agree you don't pay running backs, but you do pay elite running backs, and Dalvin Cook is a top 5 running back in the league. So he's an all-purpose back. He can catch the football. I would have kept him. I'm surprised he's still unsigned. And yeah, it's a new way of doing business in the league. I think I disagree with it. I think running backs are still valuable, especially elite ones. But yeah, it almost feels like the Vikings agree with the fans. They're like, yeah, last season was just a mirage. We're gonna suck. And decided to do a small mini tank, I would say.
Yeah, completely retooling. And with Aaron Rodgers out of the division, maybe they feel like, hey, we can kind of retool, take a step back, and still win the division. But I think that's a bad way of looking at it. It's a bad way to go into a season. I mean, regardless of what you think of pay running backs, don't pay running backs, how valuable they are, Gavin, there's no way in hell Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback without someone like Dalvin Cook next to him. Do you agree?
Yeah, I don't understand why they released him. Because he was still under contract. That's the other thing, is that it's not like he was due for a big signing. I guess I don't remember if he was demanding a pay bump. Because he was due, I think, it's gonna be like a $5 million cap hit in 2023, which for a running back of his caliber, I'd pay that all day. I'm pretty sure we gave that to David Montgomery. I think we gave more than that even, and I would happily trade Cook for Montgomery.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. I know that he had some injury issues in the years leading up to last year, but he played all 17 games last year. He
Yep.
started all 17 games last year, so I think that that's something that I don't know if that played a factor in it, but I think moving on from Cook, who I agree is I would say the third most important player on the offense on that team. I think you can't discount quarterback. And Kirk Cousins, as polarizing of a player as he is to some, he's been more than serviceable. And obviously Justin Jefferson is a god.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the the downgrade you're going to see, that I would expect to see from Cook to Madison, I feel like is not worth the headache that they went through and choosing to release him.
Yeah, the Viking fans act like Madison, you're just going to plug him in and he's going to be Dalvin Cook. And I disagree strongly. I'm a Kirk Cousins fan. I saw him live 4 or 5 times at Michigan State. I've rooted for him every year of his career. But there's no way in hell that he's going to have a better statistical season or win as many games this year without Dalvin Cook. Madison is a big drop off. Ty Chandler now gets boosted up to running back 2. He's not Alexander Madison. So you're losing 1,500 combined yards and 10 touchdowns from Dalvin Cook. That's a big loss. Not only that, on the defensive side of the ball, you take a defense that was ranked 31st in the NFL in yards allowed, and you lose Darius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, and Patrick Peterson. Now, they did add Brian Flores as defensive coordinator, Stoyo, but do you think he can make up for the lack of talent? Like, how much can a good coach overcome, get production out of a lack of talent, roster? You know what I mean?
I really like the adding of Flores as DC,
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, you need players to do anything on defense. It's hard to overcome lack of talent, and I still don't get, I guess, the Dalvin Cook the release, because you're paying him 14 million to be off the team. So to me, I feel
yeah.
like it's a waste of that cap.
Yep, absolutely. And then, do you agree with me, Stoyo? Kirk Cousins, while he puts up great stats and pretty good numbers, we've seen him be erratic with the football at times and make bonehead decisions like, where are you throwing the ball? Without a safety blanket like Dalvin Cook, I don't see any way he continues to put up the stats that he was. And there is such a thing. Everyone says it's a passing league. You got Justin Jefferson, you drafted Jordan Addison, but there is a way to be balanced. And if the Vikings go unbalanced and pass happy, I don't see that as a good thing for Kirk Cousins. Do you?
I don't. I view Kirk Cousins as a tier 2 QB,
Yeah.
and Dalvin is a tier 1 running back. Kirk Cousins
Yep.
has always done better when he had a good running game with him. And
Yep.
now just paying your running back 14 million to stay away from your team makes zero sense to me.
Excellent point. He had prime Le'Veon Bell at Michigan State when he had his best season. Um, Gavin, Justin Jefferson might be the best wide receiver in the NFL, 100 plus catches the last 2 seasons. Best Vikings receiver since Randy Moss, do you think?
Oh yeah, no question.
What about
He's
Stephon Diggs, the miracle in Minnesota?
Oh, yeah, no, no. I mean, no offense to Diggs, but I think
Yeah.
you talk to any GM, any fan base, you talk to the Bills, like you want to trade Diggs for Jefferson, like in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
to be
I
able to do
agree.
that.
I agree. Yep. Jordan Addison in the first round out of USC. He replaces Adam Thielen. Got KJ Osborne, Jalen Rager. How do you feel about that receiving core, Gavin? It's going to be more pressure on them without Dalvin Cook, you know?
There is, but I also think, you did mention TJ Hawkinson, who's going to have a few more have a full offseason there with the
Yeah.
Vikings, traded from the Lions, a underutilized player in Detroit, that you saw a little bit more utilization there in Minnesota. I think that the inclusion of him kind of adds a little bit of safety blanket for Kirk Cousins. But I think as far as receiving cores goes, if like I mentioned before, rookie receivers can take a little time. If you're not one of the blue chip guys, not a Jamar Chase or just someone of that nature. But I think Addison, Jefferson, Hawkinson, all the sons, and Madison. Oh, that was their plan. They just wanted a bunch of sons out there. That was Kirk Cousin. You can kind of fudge your way into that one.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was bad. But I think that it could be a pretty it's going to be a pretty formidable offense to go up against. I mean, Jefferson alone is going to make defensive backs tremble. They've got a pretty good O-line. I think Kirk Cousins he can make poor decisions, but I think that we also praised other quarterbacks in the past for being gunslingers.
Yeah.
So I don't see that being a devastating thing, and I do think that while they did lose some big names on defense, including Eric Kendricks, who wasn't mentioned earlier. Bringing in the new defensive coordinator, I think that's huge. I don't think you can say enough about Brian Flores. I think he got done dirty down in Miami. I was really bummed, honestly, when I saw that he went to Minnesota. But I mean, they also brought in Byron Murphy and Marcus Davenport on the defensive side of the ball. Some veterans to cover up some of the losses that they also had this offseason. I think this is going to be they're kind of going to be in contention for the winning this division. I think that they're I would say the number 2 team in this division. I think there's a little bit of holes on the defense, but their offense is I think the offense is going to just be too much.
Yeah, they're kind of hard to figure out. I mean, with all these losses, especially Dalvin Cook, I'm going to be rooting against them for sure. I feel like the way they're building this roster to go into the season is flawed, especially on offense. But they can easily still get 9 wins, maybe even potentially 10 in a very wide open division. So the addition of Brian Flores, you'd like to think they're going to be better defensively, but you also lost a lot of key pieces. Still, we were talking about when we heard Danielle Hunter was available for trade. It's like, Bears, go get him. The Vikings end up giving him a 1-year, $20 million deal to keep Danielle Hunter. That's why it's so confusing. You give Danielle Hunter that much money, but then you get rid of all these other guys. It's like, are the Vikings retooling, or what are they doing here? So I still think they're going to be a 20th ranked defense around there. And can the offense carry them, to the playoffs? That's the big question. What do you think, Stoyo? Is Brian Flores good enough to overcome a lot of these losses and retooling the defense? I mean, you're talking about a 3rd-round rookie at corner, Mekhi Blackman, that's likely going to be a starter,
If anyone can do it, Brian Flores can do it.
Yeah.
It's just going to rely on the offense. You have the best wide receiver in the game. Just feed him all game. I mean, if I was Cousins, I would just have Justin Jefferson as my number 1 option, and if he's double covered, then just feed Hawkinson.
Yeah.
And
throwing the ball
go from
anyway.
there. Yeah.
Gavin, why are you trading away your tight end to the division rival? What are you doing over there in Detroit?
Man, they didn't use him on the field, and then they traded him away, like you said, in the division, especially.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll get to the Lions and their off-season decisions a little bit later. I didn't quite understand the move, especially now, but I think at the time I was like, okay, let's get something for the guy that we know he has talent. We know that he can be good, but he's been underutilized for a lot of his time in Detroit. So if you're not going to use him, like get some draft capital for him to use on something else later. So I didn't mind the move, as I didn't want to see him go, but from a strategy standpoint, it made sense. Outside of sending him over, just across the lake, that I didn't quite understand, but again, I'm not making six figures off of this.
I think it's a big gamble to trade a player to a different
a
team in your
clearly
division.
talented player too,
Yeah,
Right.
big gamble in Detroit. Huge gamble. Pun intended.
Doyo, what are your thoughts on the Vikings? Are they still contenders in this division despite everything we just talked about?
Since the division is wide open, I have the Vikings finishing first with a 10-7 record.
Yeah.
Even after everything we mentioned.
Yeah, I could see them going 9-8 and winning the division. I just think it's going to be tough, and they're going to beat each other up in the division too, and no one's a clear favorite. So I think you're going to see a lot of splits. We'll see who can pull off a sweep. The Lions, speaking of the Detroit Lions, they won 5 out of their 6 divisional games last year. So if they can repeat that kind of success, they snuck up on people. They went 9-8, had a winning season the first time since 2017. Dan Campbell, who we made fun of when he got hired, it was easy to make fun of him, biting kneecaps and all that. But he's established a football culture. And I do like that he's hiring former players like defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, quarterback coach Mark Brunell, wide receiver coach Antoine Rendell Dre Bly as corner coach. They even have senior defensive assistant John Fox. And so I like what the Lions are building through the trenches and in their coaching staff. Last year had to be a fun year for you, Gavin, as a Lions fan. But this is the big year, right? The Lions have done this before where they've overachieved and gotten to that point. And then when the expectations come the next year, that's when it's time to prove it. And can they take that next step, get back to the playoffs, and win the NFC North for the first time ever? Can they get it done, do you think?
It's not this year. It never will happen. I think with Rodgers being gone, the changes in, the youth that you see on Chicago and Kirk Cousins running the show in Minnesota. There's no better opportunity than right now. But I will say I have ever since since before even Caldwell was coaching, I was starting to kind of like have a little hope. Man, I'm a Lions fan. I've been beat up a little bit, okay. But Caldwell brought about a little bit of hope, and as soon as we hired Matt Patricia, whose defense got slammed by Nick Foles in the Super Bowl, and as some foolish people would say, allowed Foles to outplay Brady, which those are just silly.
We all know who that is.
Right. But ever since I started getting on board, as soon as we hired Patricia, I was like, nope, I'm back to just I'll catch a game now and then, but I'm not going to be emotionally attached to this team.
You didn't like the Patriot way in Detroit?
There was no Patriot way. There was the pencil way, and it was a disaster. But I will say I'm all in this year. I am hook, line, and sinker. Whether it's BS or not, like I am all in this year. I think there's a lot of positives last year. Finishing the year started out a little rough. Started out a little season, but then finishing up 8-2, or 8-1, 8-2. Whatever,
like
we finished strong. So I think that was really good to see. I think with the younger players we had, the younger coaching staff that we had, I think that seeing that change mid-season and seeing progression, I feel like that's the thing that stood out for me the most and made me feel like, okay, we can actually like do something with this. We saw Jared Goff chucking the ball a little bit farther down the field later in the season than we did starting out. It's never been something that I think he's been known for. But seeing Ben Johnson, who I think, in my mind, Ben Johnson is the X factor for the Lions season this year.
Yeah.
I think we've had kind of prodigy offensive coordinators in the past. Jim Bob Cooter is a name I'm sure we all at least recognize for the name alone, if nothing else. Yeah. But I think Ben Johnson, he was able to make midseason changes, get Jared Goff to be a little bit more, not just doing the same thing over and over again. I think we saw some midseason changes from our offense, especially. We don't talk about the defense. That was the thing. But seeing those changes from our OC, seeing Goff being able to adapt midseason, and Ben Johnson sticking around, I think that's the thing that makes me the most excited. But I do think that, can Ben Johnson build off of last year without doing the same thing? He tries to do the same thing again, done. Like all the other teams have a full offseason to look at what happened. But why I'm encouraged is seeing the midseason changes. He can adapt on the fly. He's got a full offseason. I am really optimistic about what he's going to be able to do this offseason and get our offense to be up there and be in contention with some of the the most more dynamic offenses in the NFL. I won't say most. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid that intensely, but I think it's going to be something that it's going to make opposing DCs worried about on Saturday nights.
Stoyo, are you surprised that by the success that Dan Campbell has had so far? He seems to be building a winner, at least on paper, going through the trenches, a solid coaching staff around him. Early on we questioned his ability to be a successful head coach, but he seems to be doing it the right way. You know what I mean?
For sure. There's some stories about him, how he ended up parking an RV by the facility and basically lived by the stadium the entire offseason in the past. So that guy is clearly dedicated to football, and I love the fact that he brought in a lot of ex-players. Dre Bly was a stud corner for Detroit, and it's interesting what they've done up there. I was definitely slightly worried the way they finished last season, but I don't know how, but Lions always managed to do Lions things. I have to bring up the gambling issue that's going on up there, and a few players lost their jobs and some have been suspended.
Listen, Canada's just right across the river. Okay, what do you expect? Come on, legalize gambling. Legalize gambling. Continue.
It is legal. You just cannot bet within your team facilities. And I don't know. For me, I have a hard time understanding why they completely changed their running back rooms and used the first round pick to draft a running back. I was really worried that they're going to draft Jalen Carter, and that would have made that defensive line even more I lost my train of thought. Just a dangerous defensive line. I'm a Bears fan. I've been told to hate the Lions the entire time I've been a fan, but I do feel bad that they have not won the North yet. And like Gavin said, if it's not this year, when?
Yeah.
So
it's a great opportunity for them.
It's a great opportunity. I kind of wish them success, but not too much.
Not too much success. A little bit.
Maybe a division win and then the first round exit, like they've known to do. But at least something.
So, Jared, my big question on this team, I have nothing but praise for the way they're building it. But my big question is quarterback. We know it's a quarterback league. You go as far as the quarterback you have. Jared Goff, throughout his career, going back to the Rams under Sean McVay, is he capable of having continued great success, great seasons back to back. He surprised me. I mean, 2 years ago, I was calling Jared Goff trash. I was saying terrible. I was saying he was done. And the way things ended with the Rams looked really bad as well. But he surprised me a lot last year. He had a great season, career low interceptions, second most touchdowns of his career with 29. But my big concern is consistency. Can he do it again? The suspension of Jamison Williams doesn't help, but he does have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, Marvin Jones. I like rookie Antoine Green, Sam Laporta, guys like that. Gavin, do you think Jared Goff, are you concerned that he will be able to have as much success 2 years in a row, or do you have confidence in him?
I have confidence in the team to put Jared Goff in a place to have success.
Yeah.
I don't think that Jared Goff is a elite quarterback that is going to be able to overcome weaknesses on on his team. I think he needs strong weapons around him. We kind of saw that in Los Angeles. He needed good coaching. He needed good weapons. When he had Todd Gurley, when he had Cooper Kupp, and he had a good Whitworth was still protecting his blind side. When he had all those things, he was able to be a quarterback that you were worried about. He was able to beat Patrick Mahomes. That was who he was. And I think you have enough in Detroit to do that. I mean, the offensive line is one of the better offensive lines in the league, I believe. And that's not even me being a homer.
I agree.
Like a lot of people tend to agree with that. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is a really good safety blanket. You will have Jameson Williams coming back and everything. I mean, you can hear a lot of stuff from camp that doesn't mean anything, but the pedigree that you have with Williams is that it makes me believe that he actually is now that he's got a full season, full off season where he isn't injured. Yes, he's missing the first 6 games. What a dummy. But 6 games is not that much. We're 17 games a season now. 6 games is even less than it was before. Not a big deal.
You're not going to win the division the first 6 games, so it'll be important getting him back for the stretch run.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that there's enough pieces in place that Goff will be able to succeed and be the leader of the Detroit Lions and get them to a division win this year.
How about the additions of quarterback Teddy Bridgewater and rookie Hendon Hooker? How do you feel about those two?
Love both of them. I think you're only as good as the next man up. And I think the signing of the drafting of Hooker, I really liked. I think he was a 3rd rounder or 4th? I can't remember.
Third round.
Yeah. So yeah. I think there's enough talent there. And again, Goff is not the forever answer. I think that's known. I think there's a ceiling with him. Like, and he can't overcome. But I think that Hooker, there's enough talent and potential there. He dropped primarily due to his injury, I believe, and I think that was a great use of a 3rd round pick to sit for a little bit. There's a clear-cut starter in Goff this year, maybe and even next year. I believe Goff is under contract for. I love that pick, and I love bringing Bridgewater in. Hooker's not going to be ready, and if Goff goes down, I don't want our season to be destroyed because of that. And so bringing in Teddy Bridgewater, a guy that's won games before, a guy that can manage an offense. I love that. It's certainly, I don't view it as any sort of sign of not belief in Goff. I believe that's a sign from the front office and the ownership that we are going in this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Stoya, what do you think of them adding Teddy Bridgewater, a recent move, and a guy with starting quarterback experience and an excellent backup at this point in his career?
For sure, I've always been a Bridgewater fan. I was disappointed what happened to him with his injury, but yeah, he's a veteran, and he could potentially win you a few games. And it's always good to have a hooker on the team. So
Good for
great
the
draft
team
there.
morale.
Keeps the boys
Great
happy.
draft. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to add that Amon-Ra St. Brown is a beast, and I think in his third season is going to be even a crazier third season. I'm like predicting 13 to 1400 yards from
Yeah.
Amon-Ra St. Brown. I wish we had that St. Brown, but we have the other one. And while a good blocker, he can't do as much receiving.
Well, I was told that Equinemius was actually the more talented of the two. So
More
who
physically
knows?
gifted.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what that
Yeah.
was inferring to, but looking
wanted
at the running back room, so
Yes.
Stoyo mentioned it a little bit about I mean Jamal Williams led the NFL with 17 rushing touchdowns last year. Were you sad to see him go after such a successful year last year, Gavin?
I was sad, not only because of what he did on the field, but every interview with that dude made me so happy that he was a Detroit Lion. My wife started sharing me stuff with Instagram and TikTok. It's like, this guy's hilarious. And I was like, yeah, he's a Lion. She's like, love that dude. I wish only the best for him. I'm a pseudo Saints fan now just because of him.
Yeah.
But I was sad to see him go, and I was sad to see Swift go too. Another early pick from us that just he wasn't able to stay on the field and contribute enough. There were some rumors that he wouldn't play through injuries, which I'll never judge a man for his injuries, but I think we decided we need to move on. I don't get moving on from Jamal Williams and then giving the money to David Montgomery that we did. No shade to Montgomery. I
Yeah.
think he's a talented player that I'm happy to have on our team, but you hear the same thing from Williams. He's like, I was wanting to stay. They just didn't want me there. So I don't know exactly what was going on with that. But I'm happy to have Montgomery on the team, have a guy that has some starting experience that could be a bell cow in that situation, if needed. But I am more on board with the Gibbs signing or the Gibbs draft from the Lions. I think a lot of people are. This happened after the fact, but especially in light of the Williams suspension and him being gone for 6 games, like we need, we're relying on Williams to be a dynamic threat on the team. And I think Gibbs refers to himself as an athlete. He's not I'm not a running back. I'm an athlete. I'm a weapon. And I think that he can line up in the slot. He can be a guy that can help, drive this offense forward, particularly in those first 6 weeks. I would expect to see Montgomery in the backfield and Gibbs lined up, in the slot or to 4 wide. I would expect to see a lot of that in the first 6 weeks. I think the big thing for Gibbs, I think it's undeniable that his ability, his talents, he can break it open. He has for those who say, oh, he's too small, like you can't do it. Yeah, he's Jamal Charles size. So you can lose me with that shit. Coming out of college, Jamal Charles was like the exact same size. So I don't want to hear it.
That's a good comparison.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so we'll move on from that. I like Gibbs. I think he's going to be a really big contributor. They clearly have a plan for him. This first 6 weeks, that will allow him to learn his pass blocking. That's a big thing with rookie running backs. It's like, how well can you pass protect? Montgomery, the veteran, he's got that. Gibbs can kind of continue to learn that as he goes on. So I really like the drafting of Gibbs. Could we have used a defense? Yeah, sure, we could use a defensive lineman. Anyways, I am drinking a little bit of Kool-Aid, not gonna lie. But I'm like, yes, let's go forward with this plan.
Well, and I can't blame you for being excited. Gibbs is talented, and you hit it on the head. He's an excellent pass catcher. You want to get him out in space. We saw it today in training camp where he burned a Giants linebacker for big yards on a pass catch. So he's got that skill set. He's kind of like taking on that DeAndre Swift role and probably a better version of it. And if he can stay healthy, even better. And the Jamal Charles comparison is a good one. But me and Stoyo love David Montgomery. and he's never had an offensive line like he's about to get in Detroit. So I think you agree with me. If the Lions do run the ball and do want to stay balanced and give him enough touches, David Montgomery's also got excellent hands. He can go off this year, and likely, in my opinion, I predict him to have a career high performance. Do you agree, Stoyo?
Probably not a career high since he's going to be splitting touches with Gibbs.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's probably gonna. There's a good chance that Gibbs is going to take the starting role away from Montgomery, but I do agree that Montgomery is a great player, and Bears players have been calling Montgomery a great leader. So getting leadership in the locker room is always important. So it's a loss for the Bears and a win for the Lions, in my opinion.
Yeah, as a Bears fan, it made me upset because we created a need for no reason. Similar to you guys getting rid of Jamal Williams. When you create a need for no reason, it's like, why? Like, just bring him back. We already love this guy. What are you doing getting rid of him? But I think Montgomery's a great fit. I'm standing behind that. I think he has a career year, and I think he's the running back number one, at least for this year. Um, Here's where some criticism comes in. I I like Gibbs, the talent. Do I think he is worth a pick number 12 overall? I do not. I think you could have gotten Gibbs in the late 20s, early 30s. You look at running back positional value, the only guy worth going that high was Bijan Robinson. And if the Lions had traded up and taken Bijan here, then there's nothing I could say. But I don't think Gibbs is worth number 12 overall, but we'll see how the Lions use him. He could end up being producing like a number 12 overall, and then I'll have to eat my words. But if I'm the Lions, and me and Soyo agree, my biggest nightmare, I said it pre-draft, the night before the draft, if Jalen Carter somehow falls to the Lions and they team him up on that line with Aiden Hutchinson, I quit. I retire. Like, forget that. I do not want to. Our Bears O-line is already bad enough as it is. If you put Hutchinson and Jalen Carter, and Jalen Carter could have been a Bear too. So, um, there was some character stuff as to why he fell. I'm glad that nightmare scenario didn't happen. And we'll see on Gibbs. There's reason to be optimistic. His skill set is there, and if used the right way, he can be a stud. I just think it may have been a slight reach, but you can win with reaches as long as they produce.
Yeah, and there's a lot of scuttlebutt after the draft about how the Jets were really interested in getting Gibbs at 15. So I don't think that 12 is a huge reach for Gibbs if you know that someone, just a few picks later is looking to draft them.
Yeah.
The Carter thing, I mean, the talent is undeniable. I can't, the only reason he fell to 9, you have to believe it's because of the off-field issues, and again, I'm buying what the front office is doing, and if they're not wanting to take that on, or if there's something that we might that we don't know about, again, Lion Kool-Aid, I'm like, cool, yeah, that's fine. You guys have made good moves the last couple of years. I'm cool with it. So that's my pushback on waiting to get Gibbs in the 20s, because we heard enough afterwards about at least one team that was looking to target him, and you hear about Cook. No, sorry. I don't know. So I don't mind. I don't mind it. We went back. We got more draft capital, and in hindsight, I think it worked out, especially with the Williams suspension. But I mean, and with with the running backs, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Why people trade back up late into the first to get quarterbacks. We now can have him on a 5-year deal, and if things continue how they are. I hate even talking from a business perspective, but if things keep going how they are, and running backs, second contracts aren't being offered big money, having an asset for 5 years versus 4, for someone drafted in the second round that you might consider a reasonably similar talents, something else to take into account as well.
Absolutely. I would just say I don't see. I'm going to continue to say I love his talent. But you know who else I love their talent at the running back position, and he fell to the third round. I believe it was the third round. Is Devon Achane for the Dolphins, and you think about,
Mhm.
I feel like you could get very similar production and talent in the third round out of a Devon Achane. And you know me, I love the running back. So for me to sit here and say, "Oh, wait till the third round," or he would have fallen late first, sounds terrible coming out of my mouth. But I just, and that's my only question there. Stoyo, what do you think? Do you think the Lions reached a little bit, trading back up to get Gibbs at 12? I mean, we got Roshan Johnson, what, in the third or fourth round, right? So what do you think on that?
Yeah, we had Bijan's backup in the fourth round. That should be interesting. He
Yeah,
could become maybe a serviceable player. But when the Lions had two first round picks and they come with the running back and the linebacker, I'm okay with it as a Bears fan. I
yeah.
thought they were going to draft something in like more important position, but hey, that's how they wanted to play it. I felt better after draft night happened than the morning of the draft. So
I agree. As a Bears fan, we felt better, but if the Lions have a process and have a plan and you trust it, then you got to kind of see it out and see how, what they're building here before we can super criticize it. But as Bears fans, we have our opinions on that. Um,
but I just
Yeah,
like
yep.
to add that if I could build one franchise, I would do it the way the Lions did it this time: offensive line, defensive line, and you go
yeah.
from there.
But I mean,
So
if you're building in that route, O line and D line, imagine if you're building the D line, Jalen Carter and Aiden Hutchinson. Like that's nightmare shit, bro.
well, yeah, this is why I was praying for Seattle to draft Jalen Carter at 5 so he wouldn't fall to the Lions. But
Yeah.
turned out a lot of GM passed on him, and who
I
knows
mean,
how it's
I
going
would
to
have had him
turn out.
too.
But
You think of Monsters of the Midway. I would have loved to have Jalen Carter on our D line. It might have taken away the need to sign Yannick Ngakwe.
perhaps I'm happy with our first round pick. I wanted an offensive lineman, but I mean,
Yeah.
hindsight is 2020. We don't know how any of these players are going to do, but I'm excited.
Oh, my foresight's 2020 style, not my hindsight. Uh, so looking at receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, Marvin Jones. Some guys like Marvin Jones is back. Denzel Mims from the Jets. Rookie Antoine Green is a guy. Keep your eye on rookie Antoine Green, a late round pick that I think has some real potential. With Jameson being out, he could get established a little bit. Do you like Antoine Green, Gavin?
Yeah, I think there are having a guy that has the speed that Antoine Green has. Anyone that can spread the field, you're always looking for someone that can do that. If and so I like bringing in Antoine Green, especially with Williams being out. Amon-Ra St. Brown's the possession receiver. Marvin Jones isn't who he used to be from a speed perspective. So having Antoine Green in there, seeing what comes from that, I like that pick. Picking in the early 200s for sure.
And then I thought Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame was going to be the first tight end off the board. Or at least right there with, who was the other guy? Dalton
Kincaid,
Kincaid.
yeah.
It
Mhm.
surprised me to see the Lions take Sam Laporta over Michael Mayer. Did it surprise you, Stoyo?
No, because the Lions do some random stuff over there.
And
So
they seem to love the University of Iowa. They
I
seem to
mean,
have
come on, Iowa tight ends. It's known.
a.
It's
But
it's a lock.
do you think Laporta was the right pick over Michael Mayer?
What confused me the most about Laporta, I feel, is that like if you trade away, I mean, Hawkinson, part of the reason he was traded was because of the impending, contract that was going to be due to him. But given Dan Campbell's mindset, I thought that you'd want a little, a more dynamic receiving threat like Laporta didn't. That was the thing that confused me the most. Was like,
Yeah.
really? Like that's what we're going for? Like it threw me a little bit because we weren't using Hawkinson, who is a dynamic receiving threat. We weren't using him in that way, and then we draft Laporta. They're not saying they're 1-to-1, but that's Laporta isn't he's not a a great blocker and receiver. He's not obviously he's not Gronk, otherwise he's been drafted number 2. But that was the thing that confused me the most about the Laporta drafting was that it just didn't fit the mindset that I would have expected from the front office.
Yeah.
But by the way, we got Laporta because we traded out a number 6 and back to 12.
Okay.
So just throwing that out there. And there's another pick a little bit later that comes in with that too. But we'll talk about him on the defensive side.
Yeah,
just make sure he doesn't gamble.
Real quick, let's address the D line and then we'll finish it up with the Bears or the defense. You guys take Jack Campbell, 18th overall out of Iowa, who I'm going to be honest, you will probably know him better than I do. He wasn't on a lot of the first round big boards. When I did my mock draft, I didn't mention Jack Campbell. So, in my opinion, that's a reach, but you can tell me, if he's not. I do like the addition or the pick of Brian Branch. Excellent value pick, 2nd round safety Brian Branch. He's a hard hitter. That's a good add. And then how about C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who led the NFL in interceptions last year, a little bit of a safety nickel hybrid. That adding a guy like him is always going to boost the defense. What do you think about the moves the Lions have made to the defense this offseason?
Yeah, I agree with the Campbell pick. There was a little bit of interest with him in the first round. They have traded down to get him? Probably. There's a little bit of do you get him the value there's draft him so you get the guy you want versus trying to get him in the range he's supposed to be in. And then I kind of feel the same way about the Gibbs thing, but Campbell, could he have gone later? Sure. Would we have risked not getting him by trading back into the mid late 20s to get him? That possibly. So, but I think linebacker was a huge need for the team. So I think I like that we addressed that position. Brian Branch, I think that was a value pick right there. I mean, he dropped far into the 2nd round. I don't think that was quite an area of weakness for the Lions. I think that on the defensive side, let's be honest, lots of holes. Definitely need a lot of assistance there. But I felt between Tracy Walker and Kirby Joseph, we had a decent team. But when Brian Branch falls that late in the 2nd, you go for him, and we'll find a spot for him and or somebody else. And then the offseason signings. Cameron Sutton from the Steelers like that. Emmanuel Mosley, crossing fingers that man can get healthy because Chauncey Gardner-Johnson also currently hurt right now. So the secondary, the corners are looking a little bit banged up right now, especially with us losing Okudah in a trade this offseason. But I think we made some good moves to bolster the secondary, and we had a pick there in the draft to address the linebacker core, kind of give some help to that core. So I don't think we're going to be pseudo Vikings wise. I feel like we're not going to be stopping a lot of people, but as long as we can keep them from scoring as many points as we do. It's kind of going to be the goal.
All right. Where do you have the Lions finishing and what their record is?
So I have them, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, I have them finishing first this year. I think there's we have a lot of positives, at the end of last season. We also didn't finish first, which means we don't have a first place schedule going into this season. So I'm really optimistic about that. I have them winning 11 games this year.
Oh, wow. I'm sure, Stoyo, me and you don't have them winning 11. Where do you have the Lions going and what place finishing in the division?
I have the Lions winning 14 games
Yeah,
over 2 seasons.
oh,
Oh, I was like, what?
Uh, I have the Lions finishing in second, going 9-8.
oh, that's better than me. I'm gonna have to be the hater on this one. I have the Lions finishing third with a record of 7-10.
Oof,
Um,
oof. If
so
we weren't already pressed for time, I'd have you go through those 10 losses, but we'll move on. And I'll just chalk it up to Bears hatred.
it boils down to Jared Goff. There's very few quarterbacks I distrust more than Jared Goff. I had to eat my words last year when he had a successful season. I'm doubling down on it this year that Jared Goff is who we thought he was, and we'll see if he can prove me wrong once again. Let's
Oh, I
real
hope
quick.
I hope you're hungry in January. I hope you're hungry.
Let's real quick. Let's go through the Bears. 3-14, worst record in the NFL last year. Franchise record, 10-game losing streak. The exact
Yep,
same.
yep.
The
Oh, sorry.
exact same coaching staff coming back in 23. Stoyo, are you excited to see Justin Fields take the next step in his passing game? He's already become the third quarterback in NFL history to rush for 1,000 yards. Do you think with the addition of DJ Moore and Robert Tonyan and guys like that, Fields can take the next step in his passing game?
I sure hope so. It's about. I'm just very excited about this coming season. There's a lot of optimism, and I want Justin Fields to be great. But I don't know. I think the Bears could have done a little bit more this offseason to give him even more weapons. For example, I would assign D Hop to be a wide receiver too,
Mm-hmm.
and that would have helped out tremendously. I love the DJ Moore trade, but after that, I was a little bit confused with the offseason. We had the most cap room in the league, and I don't know. I don't think we got much. The biggest signing was a off-ball linebacker, and this is not what I would have done for sure.
And we had a pretty good one of those to begin with.
We
But
did.
anyways, um,
Yeah, it's strange.
yeah, I'm mad we got rid of Roquan. But we
I'm
replaced
not.
him with Tremaine Edmonds. Yeah, of course not. The Ravens. A lot of Bears fans spent the entire end of last year trying to tell me that Roquan had lost a step, wasn't as valuable. Blah blah blah. He goes to the Ravens. They're a top 5 defense. He wins the Buckus Award, so they can all hashtag watch more football. I didn't agree with getting rid of David Montgomery. I would have paid him. I would have kept him. We created a need for no reason. Same with Roquan. We replaced him with Deontay Foreman and drafted Roshan Johnson. So, how are you feeling about Deontay Foreman and Khalil Herbert? Or is our hope really rested in Roshan Johnson to be the guy?
I think Roshan Johnson is an interesting player because he backed up arguably the best running back in college. So
Yeah.
he doesn't have a lot of mileage. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that could be a good thing. And I'm pretty sure Roshan would have started in most college football
Yep.
teams. But this is Texas. Texas is known to have stud running backs.
Yep.
I don't know, I understand not getting rid of Montgomery, but I have a really hard time understanding the trade of Roquan just to sign a different linebacker for just a few $1 million less.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
They're gonna
yeah,
preach scheme fit, but come on, man. Roquan Smith is one of those guys that is a baller regardless of scheme, in my opinion. Like, put him on the field, let him do his thing. Edmonds is gonna get a lot of tackles. He's gonna do his thing. Is he better than Roquan? I don't think so.
for sure.
Yeah. What do you think on that, Gavin? I mean, do you like Tremaine Edmonds? Are you mad the Bears got him, or are you happier they got rid of Roquan?
I mean, yeah, if you're saying do you want them up Roquan Smith or Edmonds, like that's easy. Like, please don't let me see Roquan twice a year. I don't remember exactly what capital you guys got for the trade, kind of what that turned into. But I think I mean, from an outsider's perspective, and not a Bears fan who's kind of lived and loved the hard defense you guys have kind of had and been really that's been your stoutest part for all of our lifetimes. That was the bread and butter. I think looking at you've got Justin Fields but he needs support. He needs offensive line help. He needs receiver help. I think when you look at it from that perspective, again, from an outside perspective, it makes more sense. I wouldn't hate it as much because you'd have to think that being able to draft a tackle in the first round, bringing in a number one receiver in DJ Moore, and as much as I'm happy that Montgomery's on our team, I don't think that Foreman is this massive drop off. And we've seen Herbert be successful on your team as well while Montgomery was still there. So from my perspective, I feel like the offense overall has been elevated. Has the defense gone down? Yes, surprisingly, it can go down more than it was last year. But I feel like you at this point you have a young quarterback that needs help, and you're wasting talent and draft picks, and a draft pick on a quarterback that has the potential to be, just he's already a nightmare. Like he could be even more devastating. He could be haunting dreams from Sunday night to Saturday night if he can, get some weapons and improve on his passing ability. So from my perspective, from a not Lions fan perspective, they were the right moves to get him more help rather than rely on keeping the stouter defense.
Yeah, I mean, if it was me calling the shots, I'd have two Georgia Bulldogs anchoring my defense with Roquan Smith in the middle and Jalen Carter on the DL. But that's I'm not. So we get Darnell Wright, which is gonna help Justin Fields. We added DJ Moore, Stoyo. You have to be excited about that. Chase Claypool. People are trying to hype him up. Career low 46 catches and 1 touchdown last year after being traded to the Bears in 7 games, just 14 catches. He has to do better than that. Do you think Claypool can get his shit together and actually start producing as a Bear, or is it the Mooney DJ Moore show, in your opinion?
I think it's the Mooney and DJ Moore show with some Komet in there.
Yeah.
Which I find sad because we traded this 32nd pick for Claypool.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that our GM is very good at evaluating wide receivers. He drafted Velus Jones in the 3rd round last year, who was an old rookie and hasn't done anything. And DJ Moore and Velus Jones are the same age.
Yeah, but Bears Twitter called him Debo Light. As in Debo Samuel Light.
Twitter tends to be wrong often.
They let too many people on there.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I hope Claypool has something left in the tank, but usually when you start hitting career lows every season, you don't have it left in the tank. I'm hoping 4th-round rookie Tyler Scott out of Cincinnati can provide. He's got to be better than Equinemius and Dante Pettis and Velus. So hopefully we at least have 3 good receivers. You know what I mean? You talk about Cole Kmet, Stoyo. You know who I think is actually going to be more impactful in this offense? Robert Tonyan. Yeah. I think he might end up being our most targeted tight end. Gavin, what do you think about Tonyan joining the Bears, the former Packer?
I think it's a good addition. I mean, I think for tight end, it's good to have someone with some experience. But I think you saw there's a nice rapport with Cole Kmet last year, between him and Fields.
Yeah.
Did he get overpaid? Sure. But again, like you're looking at what's going to make our quarterback thrive. So will Tonyan have more than Kmet? I wouldn't think so. Just because you see so often that outside of bringing in elite talent, quarterbacks go to the people that they have experience with.
Yeah.
And I would push back on that assumption. But I think that, especially for having a quarterback that runs as often as Fields does, and he should continue to run. I think being able to run those 2 tight end sets with 2 vets on there is a good move. And you take a vet away from a division rival, so you can't be sad about that. And we can all agree on let's make the Packers be as bad as possible.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Now, recently, Stoyo, the Bears add defensive end Yannick Ngakoue was a major glaring need, and we fill it with Yannick Ngakoue, who had 9.5 sacks in 15 games last year, 19.5 sacks the last 2 seasons combined. Do you like the addition of Yannick Ngakoue?
Sure, it's a decent ad, but there's a reason why he was on the free agent market for so long, is that he can't do anything against the run. So basically, anytime he's on the field, you're tipping your hand defensively and you're saying that you're rushing the QB, which I guess if you just play him on 3rd and longs, that's fine. But I don't know. I just would have done the offseason completely different, but that's just me personally. Khalil Mack was traded over a year ago, and it took like 14 months almost to have someone even close to the same caliber on the team. So I don't know. I just would have done it differently. And even with that signing, why are you signing him to a 1 year? Why don't you sign him to a 2 year and have 1 year guarantee and have a team option the second year? So I just disagree with my GM. I'm not a huge fan, to be honest.
DeMarcus Walker is okay. 13 career starts in 6 NFL seasons, so he's mostly been a backup. Career high 7 sacks last year. So he's a good depth piece, but I feel like we're going to start him. I think Yannick's going to be on the field a lot, more than just 3rd and long, so that's going to hurt our run defense. Jervon Dexter out of Florida. Hopefully that's a good pick. Zach Pickens in the 3rd round. 2 defensive tackles with upside. Although if I'm going to draft a Pickens, I'd rather have George last year.
Yeah, for sure.
Get that time machine.
Yeah, get the time machine. Tremaine Edwards
for that Pittsburgh receiver.
Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Noah Sewell, linebacker additions. I do like this Stoyo corner Tyreek Stevenson out of Miami. Good 2nd round pick. Opposite Jalen Johnson, move Kyler Gordon to nickel. So we'll see. Let's end it on this.
But I have a hard time with that pick because basically you're saying that you drafted Kyler Gordon last season to be a nickel, so you spend a 2nd round pick on a nickel, which to me seems high again.
I absolutely agree with that. So we'll see some interesting moves for sure. I can't post on Twitter every day. King Poles does it again because I'm not ready to put the crown on him yet.
I mean, I'll give him the crown for worst record in the league.
Yeah, he got us the number 1 pick, which turned into DJ Moore, but I would rather still have Roquan Smith, to be honest. But predictions. So here's my 1 through 4 as we get out of here on this note, and then you guys can do yours. Vikings number 1 at 9-8. Bears number 2 at 8-9. That could be switched. I kind of do like the Bears to win the division, so maybe the Bears 9-8, Vikings 8-9. Lions 7-10, Packers 5-12. Stoyo, what's yours?
I have the Vikings going 10-7. The Lions going 0-16. 9-8.
Not again.
The Bears going 8-9 in 3rd place, and the Packers bottoming out the division at 4-13. And even if the Lions win the division and Green Bay is last, that would be a good season for me. So just want to throw it out there.
Hell yeah, Gavin, what's yours?
Well, I've had to add this up on the fly because I didn't think that I should probably have this shit together before I
That's all right.
I got the Lions with 11 wins. You can do the math on how many losses that is. I got the Vikings with 10. So Lions in first, Vikings second, and then I got the Bears with 7 wins and the Packers with 6.
All right. It's gonna
Lions, Vikings, Bears, Packers. And what's great about this season is that the Lions are getting all the hype, which kind of sucks because I'm just waiting for that shoe to drop as a lifelong Lions fan. But this division is like, if Jordan Love is good, if Justin Fields takes the next step, if the defense on the Vikings can be strong, and same with the Lions, if they can take a step up, which we saw at the the latter half of last year. Any of those things happen, one of those teams can push themselves into the clear front runner. Like, this division is wide open.
It's going to be so much fun following along all year because legit, we have no clue. Like, we're making our projections, but it's so wide open. It's going to be a very fun season. And all I know is, so we better win week 1 at home against the Packers. If we lose that, I'm going to hate life. So let's start it out 1-0 and beat the shit out of Jordan Love real quick and get the season out to a good note.
I agree. Fuck the Packers.
I feel like that's going to be a really important season more for the Packers than for the Bears. Because if Jordan Love, can come out, and even with an off season, we haven't even seen him play, and he still can't win.
Yeah. Well, on the opposite side, if Jordan Love comes into Soldier Field and beats the Bears week 1, I'm breaking my TV remote. That's already secured. So, one way or another,
you should go watch that one at a sports bar or something.
I'll ask for their TV remote and break that. But all right, on that note, guys, great shit as always. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. That was fun.
All right, have a good one.
Us.
Yeah, absolutely. Peace out, guys.